Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SRS GT3 series here, round number 5 for the Tier 1 division at the Suzuka International Circuit. I am your host and commentator for today's race, S_RDZ, and we're looking forward to another exciting round of GT3 action here today at the very famous and very ubiquitous Suzuka International Circuit, home of the original Suzuka Summer Endurance Classic, the Suzuka 1000 kilometers, and of course now the Suzuka 10 hours. So kind of getting straight into the action here today with qualifying. Of course, the stream a little bit late up on the draw. I do apologize that as well. So they're just clarifying to see that I am ready to go for qualifying. So we'll do the grid introductions on the outlap and then the championship standings right in the middle of the in lap to out lap when they get their second tires. But yes, obviously we're just starting to get things rolling here. Let me get my little drink of water just to get ready for things to come. Got to be ready for them commentary rolls as soon as qualifying does start. Right, so qualifying for 10 minutes now on the clock for our Tier 1 drivers now. And we're getting ready to go once again for this GT3 series. While all these drivers are heading out, Tice in the number 78, back from missing last weekend's round at Interlagos in favor of commentary for Tier number 2, is back in the driver's seat and is ready to get things going once again in that Mercedes AMG GT3 entry. And so he will lead them off. It is a little bit laggy, I will admit. There is the 95 of Swift, who was very close to a podium, and of course getting P4 in last week's race. That was a very good showing for him last time out in that number 95. There is Splash in the number 11, of course, having participated in another Suzuka 60-minute race last time out, getting second in that race yesterday after a strong showing early on. Of course, I did win that, so me and Splash getting a 1-2 in that race yesterday. So looking forward to taking the same car from yesterday, the Mercedes, and give it another go here in the SRS GT3 series. There was James Head in the number 7, having another strong showing in the Porsche. He's actually going to slow up and let all of these guys go on by to get some clean air. There is the 66 of SDM Viper in the Savage Racing Mercedes, the number 66. There is K&K Dot, who unfortunately missed last week's round, but he is good to be back in that 04, of course, paying homage to the very famous Porsche 911 GT1, that blue wavy scheme. And of course, that livery also ran at the, I believe, the 2019 Petit Le Mans, where the Core Autosport Run factory Porsche 911 RSRs ran with that livery, and I'm pretty sure they got the win. I could be wrong, but yeah, they looked very strong indeed for that race. There is the number 79 of T5 Black for Team Simpact Racing, that Corvette getting the second win of the season last time out at Interlagos, and I expect him to be very much up there on top of the field. There is the number 77 of Ure, who got a 3rd place out last time at Interlagos and is hoping to try and capitalize and get a couple more points in that Audi R8 LMS. And then there is the 24 of Palmer, getting 2nd place last time out. So a couple of these Simax guys deciding to take a little bit of cleaner air for this race. We're going to actually flip the cameras back to what they were. And so Swift will lead them off for this first round of hot laps, of course, getting through Degner 1 and then Degner 2, going under the bridge to complete Sector 2. That short little right-hander before hard on the brakes before the hairpin. First gear always below 50 miles an hour, or otherwise 80 kilometers an hour. Then this long sweeping right-hander up to spoon. And then up to 5th gear. Then hard on the brakes, drop it down a gear or 2. 3rd gear, and then on the throttle again before dropping it down another gear down to 2nd. Then exiting spoon. And then the long drive over to 130R, one of the fastest sweeping corners on this circuit, 130R. Look on board with Swift here to give you an idea of what it's like to be on board for 130R. Of course, letting off just a little bit, but I think these cars just don't have the rotation necessary to be able to take 130R flat on out. And Swift in that Audi R8 LMS for the Cymax team. So let's see what the lap is going to be. He's going to hang to the right as hard as he can. It's going to be a 158.4 to start things off. Tice will come across the line with a 59.2. Splash with a 59.6. Viper with a 59.3. K&K Dot with a 202, so he's not had a good lap for the start. T5 Black actually electing to take newer tires for this lap. James Head with a 209, not a good lap for him. So where's the array going to be placed? A 159.4, so nearly a second off of his teammate. A 158.5 for Palmer in the Mercedes, a very good lap, and only 63 thousandths off of his teammate. But this grid very much spread out here today, and Suzuka takes no prisoners, I'll tell you what. And T5 Black, the only car electing to take newer rubber, so that's very interesting to note that that's happened there. So I'm kind of wondering if a lot of these guys are going to pit for fresher rubber this time by. So while we got these guys coming in for their in-laps, we'll take you a quick down the championship standings here that we got for the different tiers of drivers. We'll give you guys a quick update for Tier 2 real quickly. Doug Barrow ended up winning the round at Interlagos yesterday, extending his points lead to 112. Patrolhead getting second place with 27 points, getting his bump up to 74, and in the third place in the standings. And then Bar 27 in getting a third place podium at Interlagos, jumping his score up to second in the standings, only 4 points ahead of Bar 27. Mouchelot, unfortunately, retiring from the championship, so unfortunately he will not be present at the remaining rounds of the season in the other JM Racing Porsche 11 RSR. Hair Racer not able to start, so that's going to bring up some of these guys in the back a little ways up the top of the field. Bo Fishadara getting 19 points, cropping up into 6th place. Superboy, Iapez, B8 UTAP, and then it will be Quinner who will finish them off for this round. Swift, like I said, coming into the pits, and a lot of these guys are going to come following to the pits. Look at how many people are coming into the pits. So pit lane going to be extremely busy here today. A lot of these guys taking newer rubber and going straight back on out to don't even have time to fill up the car because fuel will add more weight to the car, and you don't obviously want that to happen. So you want to go right back on out as quick as you can. And a lot of these guys going out and away while everyone else is coming out for their out laps. T5 Black is already on a hot lap, so we'll stay on board with him. Oh, very close to that AstroTurf, and you don't want to get caught up in that, otherwise your car is just going to slide right on off and into the asphalt, maybe even to the gravel trap. So this is going to be interesting for T5 Black. While he's got his tires all warmed up, these guys ahead of him don't even have the luxury of heated up tires just yet, and they'll be completing their out laps for the next set of qualifying laps. Go back up to the front of the field where it is all Cymax at the moment, including the 2 Mercedeses, Splash and Viper. We'll give you guys a Tier 1 rundown real quickly here. T5 Black extending his points lead with that win at Interlagos to 122. SMM Palmer getting second in this race, bumping his total up to 98 points. And then Ure in with a third place right there gets him up to 78. Ty's not starting the race. Swift hopping up to fourth place with 46 points with Ty's not starting. Then it's JK who hasn't started the last 2 rounds at Spa and Interlagos. Splash all the way down in 7th place. James Head and Cobales rounding up in the 9th. And then the last 3 drivers, I should say, K&K Dot, Racete, and Viper in the top 12 of the standings. And so Ty's very much slowing down. Is there a big crash? There's a couple guys, and Splash and Viper have had a major one, so can we get a replay of that just to see what's happened between these 2 guys? So one car slows up. Oh, wow. I think Viper just wasn't aware of what just happened. and T5 Black up into third place, and that car's not moving. And I think that's qualifying done for Splash right there. And that's not good news for the 66, who's completely come to a stop. Of course, the yellow flags are out. He's got the car started up, but there was a lot of damage on the front end of that car. And I think that's going to be it for Splash. He's actually parked it up into turn 1. So Splash's qualifying is basically over. And we got final laps coming in for a lot of these guys. And Swift's original pole time of 1:58.488 has been completely unchallenged so far, with the exception of Palmer, who's right there up his chuff. And I'm going to see who else can get up the running order. T5 Black making his way through the hairpin now. Middle of the pack. There was Kane K. Dot all the way down in 8th place. He's definitely going to want to try and improve on that 202, because there's definitely time to be had and to gain in that the number 04 Porsche. Trying to rise back up to the front of the field now, where it is Swift, who is just up on his best pole time. Oh, he's just been able to keep it on the road. Hard on the brakes at the 100-meter board. These Audis are very good on the brakes. And that will be it for qualifying. Someone's gone around. Who is that that's gone around? And that's the 66 again with another spin right there. Swift, no improvement thus far. Who's coming to the line next? It's Tice with a 59.0. No improvement for him. K Dot up in this 8th still with no improvement. James Head improves to 7th. Who else is coming around? T5 Black, no improvement. Yuri up into 3rd place with a 58.663. And Palmer, no improvement there. And that should be it for qualifying, where it is a side max 1, 2, 3. And so all really needs to happen is now Viper to finish up his lap. And that should be it for qualifying. And I think Splash is just trying to kill time at this rate by doing a couple of donuts into turn number 1. But Splash P8, Viper P6, and then K Dot P9, and James Head P7. And it's all side maxed in the top 5, with the exception of T5 Black in 4th place. And so Viper now coming through to end his very abysmal session. He's actually just going to go through the pit lane to make it a fair bit easy. Down to 50 miles an hour. He will end the lap through pit lane. There's definitely a bit of frustration to be had in the cockpit of that 66. Not good news for him, nor Splash, because the Mercedes of those two drivers are going to have a lot of work to do to start from P6 and P8 respectively. But to cap it all off, Swift, in a rather dominant position, will get his first pole of the season. And the Cymax Audi crew, I thought, were the two drivers that were going to have this season wrapped up in the bag in terms of the raw speed, but they have been somewhat challenged. It's been quite a difficult season, but now the Audis might be looking in fine form today, with Swift in 1st and Yuri in 3rd for those respective races. It's an all side max front row, with Swift on the front, with Palmer in 2nd place, with Yuri and T5 Black on the row behind. Tice and Viper in row 3. James Head and Splash make up the 4th row, with K Dot to bring up the rear of the grid. And so we can't really get a sense of these lights. And so the throttle input on now to get the traction control on for the better start. And then the traction control will go off. Now it's off. And we are green flag racing away. And Swift immediately to the inside to cover off the inside line for Palmer. Of course, Swift not wanting to get away, but T5 Black is trying to force a move up to the inside. But I think he was jumped off by the line by the other Mercedes of Tice. And it's now 4 Cymax crew that lead them off into after turn number 1. What a start for all of the Cymax crew as they lead it 1, 2, 3, 4. T5 Black getting displaced. What's happened to James Head? Has he not had a terrific start? Because he was all the way up into, I believe, P7. He's just lost all those positions within an instant right there. But this pack's so close. Swift's going to lead them off into Degner 2, under the bridge, towards the hairpin. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 for this very impressive and very in fine form Cymax crew here today. Oh, and Swift taking a lot of road to get the car straightened out. Of course, it's a mid-engine car, so it could corner a bit more, but at the same time, it could have a much better chance at oversteering on you, and you want to try and get that handling as much as you can. Tice now feeling the pressure of T5 Black being right up his chuff right now as they go onto the inside, switch back from T5 Black, and Tice has gone in a bit too deep, but I think he's going to lose more than one position. He has actually contact, and Tice now shuffled from 4th place all the way down to 6th place. And so T5 Black and KK Dog's going to try and make a move, and there might be even another position that Tice is going to even lose. Oh, and T5 Black having a lot of pressure to face from Viper up and behind. Viper with an aggressive dive to the inside, but can he make it work? Oh, and I think T5 Black was a little later on the brakes than the Mercedes, and T5 Black had just really well held at that position right there. We'll take a look at this really aggressive dive that Viper really tried. Oh yeah, T5 Black just a little more harder on the brakes, but very well held from the number 79 Corvette right there after one lap of racing here today. And now this is the battle we were coming to see right here. T5 Black on Ure. These two have had quite a resume together in terms of on-track racing with one another. Oh, and there's a car that's going around, I think. And who is that? That is the 66. What has happened to the 66? Gonna take a look at it right here. Oh, just, oh, wow. Just try to use as much track as possible, and unfortunately it just gets away from him, unfortunately. And once again, he's at the back of the grid with a lot of work to do to catch on up into this race. Turn our eyes back up to the front of the field where Kane kicked out. He's had an impressive start from P8 off the grid into P6. So he's had a good start going in this race, but almost into the back bumper of the 78. A very closely matched battle with a lot of these guys. Of course, the majority of these guys are from the Great Britain. Of course, one driver from Sweden, two from Spain, one from Lithuania, and one from the Netherlands, and then one from the United States to make up tier number 1. Back up to the front of this battle where T5 Black has actually got by the number 77 of Ure. So the 79 Corvette making a lot of work happen here today, where Palmer and Swift are just kind of doing their own thing, trying to give each other a bit of tow to get away from the Corvette of T5 Black, because that Corvette with the right driver in the hands of T5 Black is extremely quick with a lot of pace under the hood of that Chevrolet Corvette C7 GT3R. Fastest laps tumbling after 2 laps of racing here. Oh, look at this now. The train that's going to be led by Tice with KK Dot Splash and James Head all behind. Making the Splash and KK Dot making the move at the same time. What is KK Dot going to do? Oh, he's got nothing to do. He's actually hit the number 78 on the rear bumper. And this is extremely close between these two drivers. This is insane stuff that we're seeing a lot of these guys right here. Splash trying to close up to the 0-4, but he's got that understeer to comprehend in that Mercedes. And like the maneuverability of that Porsche, and there's it's 2 Mercedes and 2 Porsches, and Viper's actually retired from this race. Viper's actually retired from this race. Oh, big swervy Porsche that is in the 0-4. He's actually losing out a bit of time to the cars in front. He doesn't want to get too far back from these cars ahead. It's kind of like we're seeing 2 trains of 4 cars at the moment, because this is extremely close right here. And T5 Black is actually rapidly closed up to the 24, and he's brought the 77 right up with this party as well. And this is insanely close stuff that we're seeing right here. Take you on board now with the 79 of T5 Black, who's really all over the back bumper of this 24. And all of a sudden he's going to be closing up to the 24 and the 95 of these two Cymax crew, and this driver has been nothing less than a headache to the Cymax crew, because they know Cymax are quick. But when you got a team like Team Simpact Racing, who are a very established esports team on DT Sport and iRacing, and you get someone like T5 Black, he can do a lot of work with that 79, and he's doing mega wonders here today. And Yuri's actually starting to lose a bit of time to the number 79, a 1 second penalty as well. That's not going to help out his cause either, and Yuri's starting to fall slightly back to the guys behind. He doesn't need that to have happen, so hopefully the guys that are fighting up front can slow each other down so much that it'll allow this 95, not the 95, the 77 to close up. But Swift doing a lot of work now in that 95 Audi, of course, and he's a very well-established driver, and if he can keep this up in that 95, I think that would be a well-earned first place trophy for Swift in that Audi. Of course, the Audi not the fastest in a straight line, but unlike the corners here you see in this S's and a lot of other places elsewhere, that Audi is pretty dang quick. And I think Swift, this is kind of like an even playing ground here. Swift can do a lot of hard work in defending from T5 Black, and we haven't seen a lot, and we haven't seen one bit of action between Swift and T5 Black battling it out. But I could too, it's going to be two heavyweight giants just really going at it, as we see a move made on Palmer by T5 Black. Palmer's going to defend on the inside, not going to give him much room to comprehend with. Oh, they're giving the racing room, but T5 Black is going to still try and keep it on the outside. Oh, and Palmer doing himself a good job, but he's actually let the door open, and T5 Black's going to try and sneak it down on the inside. Palmer getting in the race room, and he doesn't want to fight too much, and I think T5 Black is easily going to get second place here. And what a move by T5 Black, second place off fourth on the grid. And well done for T5 Black, from fourth on the grid to second place after just four laps of racing. And now he's got one more driver to work with before he gets to that top spot, and that is the 95 of Swift. But Swift has been a class of his own in that Audi R8, and we're going to see what he can do in that Audi. And it is going to be extremely close to see how Swift can comprehend. Is he going to go to the inside to defend? He will, so he's going to bring this pack of cars to the inside pit wall. T5 Black going to be right up with him. He's going to be mounting a challenge. He's actually, look at the speed difference between the Audi and the Corvette on the straight. Can Swift hold it off on the turn one? Oh, and T5 Black is actually going a bit wide into the concrete, and T5 Black going a bit too deep into turn number one. It's actually spun. T5 Black is around the championship leader, around at turn one, and he's losing all of those positions from second, even first, down to 8th place. That is mega drama for this race. Oh my goodness gracious, and you cannot believe this. You thought going off at turn one was one thing, and then spinning while rejoining the track, that's a major kick in the balls. And now all of a sudden T5 Black has got a lot of work to do in that 79, because that is a humongous sigh of relief for the Cymax crew, who are leading this race tremendously right now. 1, 2, 3. And T5 Black, you see it right there on the left side of your screen, has the fastest lap of the race with a 58.747. And look at the tire degradation of a lot of these cars, only even after 10 minutes of running here. It is just so insane how this is all playing out right here. We'll take a look at the comments of the chat real quickly. Neil Palmer saying, good work, Palmer. Good work for him to get second place, and he's doing a fine job tailing his Sidemax teammate and the 95 Swift. Good luck, everyone. And then go on Palmer from Sharon Palmer. He's doing a lot of hard work in that 24, and hopefully he's going to try and just keep it nice and tidy right now. I don't think they're going to want to try and fight for position, but I guess it depends on if Swift is going to carry that to the inside. Yeah, they're not going to really fight it off one another. I think Palmer's going to try and just save the fuel, and hopefully see how that pans on out. Well, we got another battle going on between for fourth place. It will be the number 78 still of Tice, and Splash getting up a little bit as well past the two Porsches of K&K Dot and James Head. Neil Palmer saying, unlucky T5 Black. That was quite a bold move to T5 Black right there, and I think he just carried a bit too much speed, not realizing the cornering capabilities that the Corvette quite didn't have. And unfortunately, going wide and then throttle on entry just spins the car right around at turn number 1. So T5 Black has got himself a lot of work to do if he wants to try and get back into this main fight. 10 minutes elapsed on the clock here for this round number 5 of the SRS GT3 series. And so now it's going to be, I think it's going to be the 3 stops today with the tire degradation here. Oh, look at this right now. Look at this battle going on between for 4th through 7th place. Extremely close running here between these 4 cars. Splash not trying to make any sort of ridiculous sorts of moves. Going to stay behind and stay put. Of course, the Cymax crew just really trying to get their points difference. And I'll tell you what, if this race kind of pans out as is, imagine the points gain that Cymax are going to have for T5 Black if he stays in this predicament for 8th place. Anyone going to go off is the big question. Nothing really. So, what's KK Dot going to do? Is he going to try and force it? He looked up the inside, but wasn't going to able to make that move stick. So KK Dot, nothing really working there at the moment. And we're going to be thinking about coming close here to our first pit stops of the race. Actually, T5 Black, like I said, coming soon to our pit stops. T5 Black actually going to pit early to try and undercut the rest of the field. And no fuel in the car. And no fuel in the car. So that's going to be very interesting to see if T5 Black. So going straight in for new rubber, but no fuel in the car. Is that Corvette very fuel efficient? So that's a very big question indeed. And so now we're going to see how this strategy just all pans on out. So that's going to be very, very interesting indeed. Oh my goodness me, you love to see it, don't you? Alrighty, so we'll hop away back up to the front of the field now where we're starting to see that how much worn the tires are and have become in this race. Swift so far having led every single lap of this race in that 95. Wouldn't it be a win for him to really capitalize on in that Audi? And so now we're starting to think about, like I said, with the pit stops right now. We'll take a rise back up to 4th place where it is still no different. Oh, I think K&K Dot, he's had a bit of an incident. What's happened to K&K Dot? Well, what's ever happened, he's really lost a fair bit of time in that 04 Porsche. And so pit stops coming in now is the big question. Swift actually going to stay on out as Palmer, as Yere. So what's these guys behind going to do? Anyone else going to come in? No. So might the 2-stop be the way to go is the big question. That's a really big curiosity right there if these guys are going to try and do the 2-stop. Oh, Swift, very much close. I think the tire wear is really starting to show on that 95 compared to the 24, because look at the tire difference that Swift has to Palmer. Very worn tires compared to the cars behind him. Yeah, Swift has a lot of worn tires, and Yure with 2 seconds worth of time penalties. So this is not good news if you're the guy in the 77 Audi who's trying to stay with these guys. Of course, he can try and serve that penalty a little bit and then slipstream up right with the guys in front of him. But right now, it is a complete sea of red if you are the Cymax crew. And if you're the Cymax crew, you've got to be absolutely loving this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So immense domination here today so far in the Cymax crew. Gonna give a quick photo for the Cymax crew. And so Yure doing the job, just trying to be the support for these guys up front. Oh, you can just see how much of the wheel he has to turn to really make the corner. Starting to lose out a little bit of speed to the guys behind. And so where is these guys right about now? Ty still leading Splash and James Head. And then coming to the chicane. Are these guys still going to go for another lap or two? Can they make these racing softs work? And Swift, oh, he almost hit the wall there. Get a quick look at that right there. Holy smokes. Swift was literally power sliding. Oh, he actually did clip the wall pretty substantially. His teammate Ure and also K&K Dot all going to come into the pits for some newer rubber. And they're out, and they actually have just come out ahead of T5 Black. And so Swift will not get the better of T5 Black, but Ure will indeed. And so now it's an Audi sandwich for T5 Black and the number 79. So he's eclipsed one car, the race leading car of Swift. Oh, he was looking a little antsy on that throttle to power application. And so K&K Dot coming out well and truly in 8th place. I wouldn't say last place because we did have the retirement of the number 66 with the substantial amount of damage, I'm pretty sure, in that car. Ty's still leading him off in 2nd place. I think these guys are going to all try and make a 2-stop work here today, which I thought was going to be the 3-stop. It's going to turn into the 2-stop. And now this race first strategy looking very, very feisty indeed, with Tice just kind of leading him off in 2nd place. And so the junior guys, Palmer and Tice, doing a very, very excellent job at just kind of leading these guys on away. Of course, T5 Black still with that fastest lap with a 58.747, so he's doing very, very well here at the moment. And so I'm kind of thinking he's going to probably make his way to the pit stops here pretty soon. And so will Palmer come into the pits is the big question. Yes, he will. Will make the move very hard right into the pits. Will Tice stay out? Tice will stay out. Splash will stay out. But James Head will come into the pits. So the two Mercedes of Tice and Splash gonna try and make the 2-stop work here today. Of course, lap times dipping into the 2-minute mark. You got the 2 Audis and the Corvette of T5 Black behind. Uri's actually got by. Actually, no, he's actually under attack, I should say, from the Corvette of T5 Black. Oh, and T5 Black right around the outside. What a move that was for T5 Black. And just no chance, unfortunately, I have to say it, for Ure to be able to try and capitalize on that. But he's still got that 2-second time penalty that he's got to comprehend with right here. And hopefully he can try and make something work out of that. And so Tice and Splash leading them all off. But where does the... And so Palmer has actually come out in front of T5 Black, which is quite interesting. So I think T5 Black taking a bit of a chance at going on some fresher rubber. Going in 4th place. He's eclipsed 4 cars in this race. But he's still going to have the cars of Tice and Splash who have all got a pit. But Palmer doing an exceptional job at staying up at the front. And it's been 2 times this season that he's been beaten out to T5 Black this season. And wouldn't he like to try and fire a shot back at T5 Black for race wins here today? We're expecting these two of the number 78 and the number 11 in any time soon. Very, very shortly indeed, we will see these two come into the pits for their first lap. Splash and Tice both make the hard right into pit lane. And so we're going to see these two come out. Where are they going to come out is the big question. We got the number 24, the 79, the 77, the 95, and possibly the 04 all coming down, as well as the 7 all coming down. And Tice and Splash are still in the pits. still in pit lane. They're taking a lot of time, and Splash has actually jumped the number 78 in pit lane. And Splash has jumped Tice in the pit lane. So very quick stop for Splash. And Tice just immediately trying to get back at the number 11, trying to get a bit of pressure going on for the number 11 Mercedes of Splash in that Falcon Motorsports by SDM entry. So after the first pit stop cycles have come through, it is Palmer that leads him off with less than 39 minutes to go. T5 Black, after that major spin in turn 1, electing to undercut the field and electing to take no fuel on that second stop, is up into second place, but he will have a load of fuel that he will have to take on this next stop. Yuri and everyone else behind has got a lot of fuel, and so now Yuri doing an exceptional job at staying in third place in that 77 Audi. Swift in fourth place in the 95 Audi. And not a whole lot for Swift after leading all of the first stint that he had. K&K Dot up into fifth place, but he's got a 1.4 second time penalty that he's got to comprehend with for the meanwhile. James Head down in sixth place. Having a pretty quiet race from James Head, to be quite honest with you. So he's been working his way back up in terms of raw pace. And he's been certainly showing it here today. Oh, K&K Dot with a big moment, and that's allowing James Head to get side by side. So two Porsches side by side, really in terms of identical speed to one another. James Head has got the move done. K&K Dot getting a bit tapped wide, but James Head has got the move done for fifth place. So wonderful work for a lot of these guys. Palmer doing an exceptional job at maintaining this pace for the lead. And we're looking to see how Palmer can extend this race gap right now. As a matter of fact, he's making a statement by putting down purple sectors. T5 Black actually is breaking his fastest lap with a 58.591 not that while ago. And Palmer's last lap was a 58.612. So these cars, they're getting quicker, and Palmer may be looking set to take another fastest lap of the race with this lap, with this fine form that he's really shown so far in this going. Oh, a little bit wide for Palmer there. Almost got it on the AstroTurf, which is something that you definitely didn't want to do. So Palmer really trying to make the most use out of this track. T5 Black actually starting to feel a little bit of pressure from the cars behind with the number 77 right up his chuff. I think T5 Black might be starting to fuel save a little bit at the moment. He's dipped into the red for fuel consumption, so I think him electing to not take fuel on that second stop. Is he going to pit this time by? No. He's going to try and hold up the Audi for one more lap longer. Palmer tried going to the right-hand side alongside the pit straight, but wasn't able to get the fastest lap of the race, so he's going to obviously still have to try again as well. Yuri going a bit wide on corner entry to try and get the car swung around for the S's. Yuri still with 1.8 second time penalty, Swift with a half a second time penalty, so these Simax Audi crew might be having a bit of issues with terms of track limits. Yuri with a purple sector 1, so obviously Yuri has got some pace in that number 77 Audi, and this is exactly what I think T5 Black is really trying to do at the moment. He's really trying to keep the number 77 behind him for as long as he can. And if there's a time for Yuri to try and get by the Corvette, it has to be right now. But that straight line speed of that Corvette, like I said, just very difficult for that Audi right now. And this is obviously not good news for him at the moment. And this is not good news if you are the cockpit of the 77 of Ure. T5 Black, look at how much fuel he's got. He's definitely going to be coming to the pits this time by. That's a given. But he's trying to do the best that he can to really slow up the progress of the number 77 Audi. And I'm really intrigued to see if T5 Black will go long on this third stint to get some clean air, probably fill up the tank all the way, and see how that plays on out. Oh, Uri extremely close on track limits, like I said, but he's really trying to get by this number 79 Corvette because it's really being a thorn up his chuff right now if he wants any chance of trying to get up. And there's the move for the pit lane. T5 Black will come into the pits after electing to not take fuel on that first stop, and now he's going to have to take fuel on this stop right there. 4 fresh Michelin slick compound tires on as well on that TSR Corvette. Going to drop all the way down to last place, but I think he's going to like to get some clean air. He's actually to come back out now, not be too far off these guys of Splash and Tice 2. Those guys are electing for a 2-stop race this time by. Palmer, Uri, and Swift making it an all-side max podium. And then James Head having a wonderful race up into P4. Only 7 seconds off Swift, but 11 seconds off of Palmer. And purple sector 1 for James Head, so he's looking mighty quick. 59.098 for his fastest lap of the race. And James Head's in very fine form here today. He's had a bit of a tough start to the season, as a matter of fact. And by halfway point in the season, and the halfway point of the season will actually be in about 2 minutes and 45 seconds time. We'll begin the second half of the season, and it's going to be extremely, extremely feisty going for the final 4 rounds of the season. And keep in mind, folks, for the next week, we will go back to another 90-minute race for round 6 of the SRS GT3 series, wherever the series goes down under home to the home of the Bathurst 12-hour and to home of the Bathurst 1000 at Mount Panorama, the Bathurst at the Mount Panorama circuit. And these cars will tackle the mighty Bathurst Mountain, of course, Skyline, Conrad Straight, Hell Corner, to name a few, and the chicane as well. That's going to be a feisty fun race, especially to the long drag down the Conrad Straight. James Head not that far off his fastest lap, but he's putting in some incredibly consistent lap times here at the moment. And so now we're kind of nearing that point where we're starting to think about second stops of the race. Palmer still leading him off by 2.6 seconds over his Audi teammates of Uri and Swift. Uri still with that 1.8 second time penalty at the moment, and Swift now, I'm thinking he's still got that 5 seconds penalty. He does, as a matter of fact. So these Audis, they're not even thinking about pushing their penalties downward. They're just trying to make up as much time as they can, because they know if they start slowing down, it's going to probably cost them later in the race. So I think if there's a time to serve these penalties, it's got to be later in this race. It has to be later in the race if these guys want any chance at trying to maintain a whole side max podium here today. You can see there the number seven of James Head not that far off in the number 0 in the number 7 JM Racing Porsche, and then not that far off either as well as K&K Dot in that number 04 Porsche 911 RSR. And he's done an incredibly done job at the moment. Of course, T5 Black getting the better of Splash LTU, and T5 Black trying to make up as much time as he can to get further up the field, where Tice is kind of in no man's land with T5 Black. I think T5 Black going to have his sights set on his next target, of course. T5 Black setting purple sectors this time by, so is he going to be looking to get fastest lap of the race? But I don't think it's going to happen if he's got... Oh, that's K&K Dot! That's K&K Dot! He's had an incident, and he's dropped all the way down to 8th place. What's happened here for K&K Dot? Oh, he got it on the grass, and he took it a bit too deep and into the AstroTurf. Oh, and that's not good news for K&K Dot, who was doing so well in this running. And he's now all the way down to P8 with very worn tires and low fuel. So that's not good news for the 0-4. Oh my goodness me. Oh, that's so unfortunate for K&K Dot, who was doing extremely well in this running in the top 5 in that 0-4. A big mistake at one of the fastest sections of the circuit pays it pays huge dividends, and unfortunately it just came undone for K&K Dot. And now, with one more pit stop, I imagine, or two I should say, he's gonna have a lot of work to do to try and get back up in this race. James Head's starting to go a little bit backwards, I'd say, and T5 Black has actually gone by both the number 04 Porsche and the 78 of Tice. So T5 Black really on a charge here right now in that 79 Corvette. And it's going to be interesting to see how all this pans on out. And I'm thinking we're going to see the Audis of Swift and Ure into the pits here real shortly indeed. And Ure and Swift have done an incredibly fine job with these Audis, just showing the true capabilities that these cars have underneath in that 5.2 liter V10 power plant. And Swift nearly again clipping that left side pit entry wall. And so the Cymax crew getting to work on both their Audi R8s. Some very fine looking machines here today. K&K Dot actually is going to stay out for another lap, so these Audis will be relegated down, and not relegated down that far enough, but they will be relegated down to 7th and last place. But this should benefit them strategy wise, because they have a whole wallop of cars, including the 3rd place car of T5 Black as well. Not that far up the road is the number 7 of James Head, and he has done an incredible job in that number 7 Porsche to get into a prime position of where he is right now. That is incredible stuff, and hopefully if he can get on the podium, I think that would be a well-earned podium here for him today in that number 7 car. Turn our attention to T5 Black in 3rd place, who, like I said, had that mega spin in, I believe, lap 3 or lap 4 or whatever, which one it was. And T5 Black has been really on an alternate strategy from the rest of the field, taking less fuel than a lot of these guys to try and capitalize and hopefully make it work going for these guys up front. Palmer, I can imagine, and as well as James, going to come into the pits pretty soon here. And so now Palmer very low on the fuel. Is he even going to run out of fuel is the big question. Light on the throttle, trying to make it into the pits, and he will make it into the pits for another stop. Probably his second one of the day. James Head also going to possibly be coming into the pits as well. He will indeed be coming into the pits this time by, so T5 Black will get back to the front of the race. Tice and Splash gonna be right with these guys as well, trying to make the 2-stop work here today in this race. And so T5 Black, who had that one spin, I think he took less fuel than a lot of these guys up front. And so I'm really intrigued to see how T5 Black's strategy will pan on out here for today. And you can see they're splashing really in the middle of the pack at the moment in 3rd place here, where he's got the number 24 of Palmer behind. And you can see Palmer just really trying to get by the number 11 of Splash. He's actually going to, oh, and Splash, nothing doing there just yet. He's not going to be making this easy for the 24, because he's got a strategy of his own that he's got to follow by. He's got to last about 5 more minutes on this fuel and tire situation. He's got more fuel in the tank. to go a bit more. And is that penalty serving for Swift? Penalty, Swift, yes, Swift has served that penalty of 0.5 of a second. And so Swift now going to be on a clean slate, and he could really push without cutting those track limits to see how this will really pan on out now. Ty's trying to do some heavy work now with that two-stop. Oh, did Palmer try to look up the inside? Nothing really doing just yet for the number 24. Oh, and Swift splashed onto the inside now to try and cover off that inside line towards 130R. But does Palmer have the drive? Oh, really weaving on the strand. I think he's just trying to get those tires a bit more warmed up, get a bit more grip in them. Oh, it's up. Oh, Palmer really hard on the brakes, but is it going to be too hard? He's actually going to force the number 11 a bit wide. And what a terrific move by the 24. Let's get another replay of that on right there. Late dive, late move to the right, hard on the brakes, and well executed dive for the number 24 as he looks to take second place. Palmer's just on a charger there. Tyson actually, I think, just let the number 24 on by. Was that the case of what happened right there? Did he kick it out? Yep, he's just let the number 24 on by, not trying to let Palmer get too much in the way of things, but he will try and hold off this number 11 of Splash. Oh, what is that? Oh, I thought I was going to see a switch of positions for the Audis. The two Audis are side by side, and Ure is actually going around, and Ure's going around. Oh my goodness. And that is one of the most dangerous corners that you can go around in any race car, and double pirouetting, and Ure's progress has just been nullified, and this has humongous championship implications now. So Ure's had a spin, T5 Black's had a spin. Palmer has a very good chance of getting back into this championship fight now. Oh my goodness gracious. And T5 Black, I think it's going to have to take a humongous load of fuel on this stop. But that is... Was that something to do with one of the with the Cymax Audis? Was there contact? Was the big question. Oh, yep, Swift gave a lot of room for Ure, and unfortunately it just really came undone. Oh, and look at this, Tice now. Splash tried it. Oh, Swift, what an opportunistic move by Swift to go on the outside of Splash. Oh, and what a move that was by the 95. Oh, and Swift, one of the most opportunistic drivers. Oh, and Splash is going to try and follow up. And Tice not going to make it easy, but Swift, oh, and Swift almost went off too. Not even a lap later than his teammate. And so Swift back up into third place. I'm kind of wondering if there's a bit of team orders being played here at the Cymax camp to try and keep this number 11 Mercedes at bay. And while all this is happening, this is allowing the number 79 of T5 Black to get even further up the field a little bit longer. James Head did eventually come into the pits. Oh, and K&K Dot. Oh, and another big crash for K&K Dot. Oh, and he's actually retired from this race. And I believe, has he retired? Yes, he has. K&K Dot has also retired from this race. And you could just see how unfaithful Suzuka can be at times. Of course, it's a very, very demanding course, and even it could take some of the finest of drivers out of this running. And like that, we have 2 retirements from this race. You got to feel the frustration of a couple of these drivers. Of course, they put in the practice, they put in a lot of hard time, and unfortunately at times the cars just don't want to be up to snuff, and unfortunately you get incidents like this where it doesn't do you much. And now we're seeing T5 Black doing wonderful with 20 minutes to go. I think he will have to pit this time by. He will make the lunge into the pits for 20 more minutes of running to go. He will, I think, go 5 minutes longer than a lot of these guys. that they're going. Actually, Tice, Splash, all coming into the pits for their second stop of the race. I think T5 Black will have those guys covered off for this running, this late in the running. And so now T5 Black going to be putting up of a snuff to try and get back some lost time for that spin in turn number 1 at the beginning of the race. And so now with about 18.5 minutes to go of running in this round number 5 of the SRS GT3 series for tier number 1, it is Palmer that still leads the way after such a long haul. And so now the 95 of Swift doing exceptionally well with that Audi. He's just been very much on fine form here today. This is definitely the best performance that we've seen from Swift in this 95. Like I said, I thought that at the beginning of the season that he was going to be one of the drivers that would be up in the championship, fighting for championship wins. But that's just not been the case. It's just not been the case here, where he's had to pull out a lot of hard work in this Audi. And now this is the best that we've seen Swift here all day today. Of course, a little bit less fuel than the race leading number 24, a Palmer. Yuri back up into 3rd place right now. But he's not that far off of the guys behind him, which include the number 7 and the number 79. And so James Head trying to defend from T5 Black. T5 Black going to make the move down to the inside. I don't think James Head is going to really put up with much of a fight here, to be quite honest with you. And that's going to be easy work for T5 Black in this go in late in the running here. Almost 75% of the race distance now almost complete. And the pack now just kind of spread on out at the moment. Tyson Splash leading the rest of the pack. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be a race with a humongous championship implications if Palmer can win this race, because I'm fairly certain that he's not had a single win to his credit. Only likes of drivers been able to get on top of the races so far have been T5 Black for 2 times this season at Brands Hatch and Interlagos, Yuri at the very wet and rainy Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and then JK as part of the KRT SE Aston Martin racing team for that group, getting the first win of the season at Monza, but we have not seen him since Brands Hatch as far as I can tell you right now. And of course, Kabbalah is not being able to race here today. And this could be a very, very humongous race win for Palmer. But he's got one more stop to do. Oh, and he's extremely close to the AstroTurf. He's just trying to put in the laps, keep the hard work going. Is he going to make the pit stop? Nope, he's going to go on for another lap. So what we'll do right now is we'll give you an onboard view of our race leading number 24 Palmer to give you a lap of the Suzuka International Circuit. Going past the timekeepers, start finish line down to the first corner, hard on the brakes, and then dropping it down a couple gears or so. Then to the S's, very, very light on the throttle, on, off, through the snake corner here. Then through the S's, and then through the anti-banked curve here, drop it down another gear, completes sector 1, then through the left-handed through Dunlop corner. Very careful with the throttling, of course. Out of Dunlop to the first Degner right here, hard on the brakes, drop it down to 4th or 3rd, hard on the brakes again, drop it to 2nd for Degner 2, underneath the bridge. And then into sector 3 for the hairpin. One of the tightest turns on the circuit, if not the tightest turn on the circuit, even close to 40 miles an hour, which is 75 kilometers an hour or so. Then through 200R, past the little chicane on the right, and then the long drive over up to Spoon. So far away from the start-finish line. Drop it down a couple gears or so, and then throttle, then brake once again for second through the Spoon curve. Then the long back stretch towards 130R to the Dunlop secondary start-finish line at the other end of the circuit for the Suzuka West layout. Then through 130R, you can see how demanding 130R is in these GT3 cars. And then through the chicane past the Castillo Triangle. And then through the last curve corner. Of course, Bridgestone on the sponsorship could say Bridgestone corner. And that is a lap of the Suzuka circuit. It is one of the most demanding circuits that you can get in a GT3 car, as we do have the 95 of Swift, who will pit out of second place, and his teammate Ure will follow suit right behind here. This is going to be the pit stop that will matter the most, because the fuel situation, the tires, and how much the drivers can get out of these tires and fuel situation for one final time. And now it is game time for a lot of these drivers. Swift now well and truly ahead of his teammate in the 95. Swift has Ure and Swift have jumped both Tice and Splash, who were electing to make two stops work in this race. So I think it just hasn't worked out for them as well, unfortunately. And so we will have two more cars, or three more cars, I should say, making their way to the pits. Of course, T5 Black. I'm actually expecting James Head into the pits out of third place. Oh, little antsy on the throttle right there, and this little car is sliding up a fair amount. Oh, this is extremely close here today. So now, with about 12 minutes to go, 80% of the race complete. We're expecting the number 24, a Palmer, I imagine, to be into the pit soon. He's actually gotten to break the fastest lap of the race with a 58.520. Palmer into the pits now for one final time. He's done an incredible work in this 24 Mercedes, but can he capitalize that to a race win here today is the big question. It's going to be a lot of work for the number 24. James Head into the pits as well, but where will the number 24 come out? He's actually going to come out behind the number 79 of T5 Black, and T5 Black going to be on those worn tires and somewhat down on fuel consumption. Palmer taking a fair bit more fuel than the Corvette ahead of him, but how can Palmer really try and get by this 79, who had that very monumental spin at the beginning of the race? And so now Palmer going to try and work his hardest to get his first win of the season, and T5 Black is going to try and work as hard to get his third win of the season. So just to show you how much of a dominant display that the Team Simpat Racing crew have had in this first tier of the SRS GT3 series. And so now T5 Black, like I said, a little bit worn on those tires, but Palmer on very much fresh rubber, starting to close the gap down a little bit. James Head going to come out in dead last, but he should be able to get by the, I believe, the sixth place and fifth place cars of Splash and Tice. Ure has been slowly trying to clear out that penalty for the most part, but I think is too far off from his teammate Swift to try and really mount a challenge in that 77. And Swift, our pole sitter, looking set to take a very well-earned podium here today, I'll tell you what. And as is T5 Black, of course, having that spin, and of course just having to fight his way back up to the front of the field. to do an excellent job here today in this 79 Corvette. And so the gap now starting to go just a little bit on up on these straightaways, but I think the Mercedes has a bit more in the way in the terms of cornering. Of course, it doesn't have to be just, you know, Formula One or, you know, Super GT cars or Grand Touring GT3 cars that just take it all. Suzuka is one of the most demanding circuits a driver can just drive a race car on. It is so demanding. It's very, very highly rewarded, highly riskful. It's a high risk, high reward kind of track. And I think Palmer is going to take a lot of that high risk and try and implement it if he wants any chance at getting the Cymax Mercedes crew their first win of the season here today. The gap's starting to close back down just a little bit. Palmer, I think, out of the slipstream of that Corvette, which looks very meaty in a straight line. So nothing really doing much here for these drivers. And so Palmer, it's like he tries to, it's like he gets better acceleration out of the corner, but that Corvette has just got so much better top speed, especially on a high-speed circuit like Suzuka. This is very much benefiting T5 Black in the long run here. Can he make 7.5 minutes work on a quarter tank of fuel? That's a really big question here today. T5 Black actually going to pit early, and I think, is this going to be a splash and dash for T5 Black? New rubber, splash and dash. It is. There's going to be a bit of fuel, so 4 stops, but only a little bit of fuel. But he will come out in 3rd place, and I think he did that just to try and cover off the number 77 of Yure. And this has allowed Palmer to really get his nose out and try and staying well and truly ahead. But I think with 7 minutes to go left in this running, I think Swift is going to have his hands full in that 77 Audi with a bit of worn tires and a bit of lower fuel consumption than the Corvette behind. But that Corvette looking mighty, meaty quick. And with a quick driver in the hands of T5 Black, T5 Black is going to be hungry for this podium here today. Of course, 7 cars still remaining. Of course, 9 did take the start of the race, but the 66 of the 66 Mercedes of SC and Viper having retired from the race early on, and then Kane kicked out with that big moment into turn 1. Massive damage to the front end of that Porsche 911 RSR, and that probably was the day over for the 04 of K&K Dot. I can tell you both drivers very frustrated, but both drivers okay after their incidents on track. Of course, we still have 7 cars at the helm here. Everyone's just kind of spread on out. Well, I say that, but you got the number 11 and the number 7 kind of right with each other here. You got James Head and Splash going at it here. On board with the number 11 from the back bumper. James Head going a bit, almost wide and out into the AstroTurf. That very slippery stuff which your car just does not like. It's very slippery and it will cost you a ton. James Head trying to is looking a little squirrely in that number 7 Porsche. Bit longer gears in the number 7 Porsche, but trying to make something work. Is he going to try and make it? No dive as of yet for this number 7 Porsche, but he's going to be all over the back bumper of this number 11 Mercedes. The Falcon. Oh, was there a bit of contact between the number 7 and the number 11? And with about 5 minutes to go, these guys are going to give it absolutely everything they got. I think McDonald is starting to struggle a little bit on those tires. Yeah, look at the tire difference between the number 11 and the number 7. Of course, James making the 3-stop work, Splash trying to make the 2-stop work. And I can tell you right now, I don't think the number 11's 2-stop strategy might be working out, but he will try and make it work out to the best of his abilities. Oh, you can just see the flash of lights. James is starting to get a little bit on the offensive now a little bit. Try and get into the mindset of the number 11 of Splash. Trying to cover the inside, give James Head a little bit of breathing room. There is the number 7 at the right hand of the driver's eye. Oh, and he's actually given up that position, so I think it's Splash. I don't think he's trying to... I think he knows he wasn't going to defend that position very, very well, so I think he just kind of let the number 7 on by without any hesitation. And this number 7 is just going to pounce away for the 6th spot right here, right now. That gap now from 2nd to 3rd. And T5 Black getting a fastest lap of the race with a 58.246. So T5 Black, very well done here today. And so now the gap now only about a second with 3 laps to go, or 3 minutes to go, I should say. I think we're looking at about possibly 1 more lap after this one. And Palmer looking set to possibly take his first win of the season here today. And if you would have asked anybody if a podium was highly possible after that spin by T5 Black, could have it made the difference of T5 Black winning this race is the big question. Palmer is going to get the points that he needed to get back into this championship fight somewhat. It's quite a big gap, but of course they will take whatever points they can get. So Palmer take his first win. Palmer most likely will take his first win of the season, and Swift will most likely take his first podium of the season. And I say most likely because he's got a very angry T5 Black right up his chuff, and T5 Black is going to give it absolutely everything that he's got in that 79 Corvette. And you can just see right there, T5 Black just really trying to follow the slipstream. The gap is now starting to come down now. It's probably going to be half a second by the time he gets to 130R. It is indeed half a second. Starts to go up again once a little bit because T5 Black's got to let off, but the Audi can take 130R pretty nearly flat. Oh, and is that Swift with a little bit of an incident, but now all of a sudden, this gap now to 2nd place is going to really start to be interesting right here. T5 Black, look at the speed difference between the Audi and the Corvette. Swift is going to have to do a lot of hard work. He's going to try and force little to no room for the 79 Corvette. Oh, he's going to try and force, and T5 Black, oh, is he going to force the, he's a little bit on the outside, but Swift going to try and look it up again once a little bit as well. And T5 Black going to give it everything that he's got, and Swift 2 is going to give it everything he's got as well. And this Audi, he's going to have to try and possibly make something work. If there's a spot where he's going to have to try and make it work, it's got to be the hairpin if he's going to be right up the number 79's chuff. And that Corvette's starting to build a bit of a gap now. And T5 Black has done the work, but he's got to do the defending because Swift is going to be absolutely all over this back bumper. And Swift, I think, taking it a bit too deep. I think Swift, it's starting to slip from him a little bit, but he's got to try and I think make something work in that chicane, because that Corvette, like I said, a bit slower out of the out of 130R. And so now I think Swift, I think he realizes that Corvette is way too quick. And I think that Corvette might be looking to get 2nd place. What an incredible recovery drive it has been for the number 79 Corvette. Final lap, of course. And what an incredible recovery drive it has been for the number 79. But we'll turn our eyes to the front of the field. He's finished on the podium every single race this season, but this time he will not finish any other position than third or second. It will be Palmer who will win for the first time this season in round number 5. What an incredible recovery drive for T5 Black to get second place with the fastest lap to his credit. And Swift will get his first podium of the season as well in third place. Yuri to the line in fourth place. What a drive he's had all day. Tice making it into the top 5. James Head and Splash will finish them off in 6th and 7th place. But for the first time this season, it will be Palmer who will win for the first time this season. That's a well-earned victory for Palmer in that 24 right there. What an incredible recovery drive for T5 Black and the first podium for Swift. But this time, Palmer will not be defeated. It will be Palmer who will finish on the top step here today. What an incredible race that was. We'll turn our eyes and get those that finished on the podium. And I got to give Swift and T5 Black a lot of credit in that race. Swift tried doing everything that he had. He had an incredibly clean race. He had an incredibly quick car, getting that pole position, but just falling short on that last lap of a second place finish. Of course, getting his first podium of the season, and an incredible recovery drive by T5 Black after having that monumental spin in the race early on in the running. Did you think, was there any possibility that could have made a humongous difference? Is the big question. Of course, only 5 seconds off the race-winning car of Palmer. T5 Black just incredibly quick in the running here today. In terms of race pace, of course, not quick in terms of qualifying pace, but of course, in terms of race pace, that Corvette has got some meat under its hood. And we'll start off the podium interviews by getting the number 95 of Swift, getting his first podium of the season. Swift, pole position to a third place. That race wasn't easy for you, but you had to make it work somehow, and you get your first podium of the season. Tell us about your race today, Swift.
It was pretty good, pretty clean, other than I think I had one moment in sector 1 during the race, but other than that, it was pretty clean. It's just a shame in our second set of stops we came out right behind the midfield pack with Splash and Ties, and then that cost us probably 2 laps of fresh tyre running, which probably would have been enough by the end to gap T5. But other than that, yeah, it was a really nice race. The Audi handled brilliantly through the first 7 laps of the stint, and then the 8th lap was just, yeah, keeping it together so we could get to the end. Very happy. It was the first podium as well.
And compared to the Audis and how they handled it in Interlagos, and it's kind of like similar scenario. It's kind of, the Interlagos and Suzukas are kind of like 2 similar courses. Did you think the Audi was handling a bit better than it was at Interlagos, despite the 2 courses being nearly identical to one another?
Yeah, it was very similar. It's just I'm much better around Suzuka than I am around Interlagos. That's pretty much the only reason. I prefer Suzuka a lot. Yeah, the first sector and the Degners and even Spoon, like, you can carry so much speed with the Audi on entry and control it with the rear, so it's a lot of fun, as opposed to Interlagos where it just seems like the corners never end.
So a good day for Swift in the number 95, getting his first podium of the season, a truly well-earned podium after getting his first pole position of the season as well. And we'll turn our attention to T5 Black. And I gotta tell you, T5 Black, after that spin in the race, second place looked very, very unlikely in that race. Tell us about your heck of a recovery drive, T5 Black.
Me, I thought the same. Oh, fuck me.
Oh. I mean, T5, even when you overtook me on the last lap, you almost dipped it on the first corner as well again.
I know. I bought my pills for that. Today, my load cells pedal started to trouble me. When I did change to rubber, I did have a feeling before I changed to rubber, and when I did make that spin, I didn't press too hard as I used to on the pedal. So yeah, it went straight ahead. I tried to save it, but it came on to track again and it spun. And then it was oof.
And I'll tell you what, T5 Black, you got to be thinking after that spin that any chance of a podium was just dashed. but you just did your work, and then you put in some quick laps. Fastest car of the day, no question about that. And basically, you ended up 5 seconds away from Palmer. Did you think that's been possibly made a difference of you getting first and second place here today?
No, I didn't even think we get to the podium. Maybe 4th or 5th, maybe. But I just keep my head down and drive that wet like I've never done it. Yeah.
So
I got lucky and didn't get that much traffic. People on all the tires was nice to me, so they just let me go instead of fighting. So that's a big help too.
So a good day for TSR, for the Team Simpat Racing crew with T5 Black. I could tell the team on the TSR Discord are going to be very happy about that T5 Black. So,
yeah.
So a very, very well-earned recovery drive for you to stay in the championship hunt. But there's one driver
Thank you.
But there was one driver that could only muster a first place. He's not ending up in third. He's not ending up in second place. He will end up in first place today. SMM Palmer, your first win of the season, buddy. You've got to be ecstatic about that race.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm kind of lost for words, to be honest. I knew it was going to happen eventually, and to be honest, I'm very, very happy to keep up my podium streak. And then, of course, get the win finally. To be honest, I think after qualifying and getting that lap in, which to be honest, I was very, very surprised on myself, because that lap was better than any lap I could do in the race, even though of course it was lower fuel in the race. But yeah, to be honest, of course, the first stint I just focused on saving fuel, of course, behind Swift, because Swift had some hairy moments, and I had to sort of put on the brakes and that just to make sure I didn't run into the back of him and that. So yeah, but to be honest, I'm so happy, and of course, nothing went wrong. And when T5 Black had his spin, that was just like a moment of relief, because his pace all through throughout the race was absolutely insane. And of course that was shown at the end of the race. And to be honest, I was getting ready, like the last 6 laps, I was getting ready for like a battle, and that, of course, that didn't happen. And that was another bit of relief for me. Like for about 3 laps, I was really, really pushing to try to get into that slipstream, and just as I was almost in it, of course, T5 pitted, so I'm very, very happy about that. But yeah, to be honest, I'm so happy to finally get a win in SRS, and of course for Side Max. Hopefully I can get some more in the future.
And I'll answer you one final question before we do cut the stream here. Just kind of going back to the early beginning of the race with T5 Black and the Mega Spin, what was like the general driver reaction for the Cymax crew, to kind of get an insight of what was it like to be like, oh my god, one of our championship rivals has spun out, we can capitalize on points here? What was the reaction for you, Palmer, as the racing driver in that moment in time?
Well, to be honest, of course, I knew, like I said, I knew T5 had such insane pace. So to be honest, it was mostly relief in that, but of course I knew I had to keep calm, keep on saving fuel in that, because of course it's so easy to let yourself get too excited in that, and then you make the same mistake or a different mistake, and then of course you go back to square one. So I was mostly focusing on that, and to be honest, like I was focusing on just not really pushing too hard, or I was kind of pushing to try and get the fast lap. But of course, that, I think it's like 58.2. That's just unstoppable, to be honest, or unbeatable, I should say. Yeah, to be honest, I was just sort of trying to stay calm in that. Of course, I did have quite a lot of relief and excitement, because I sort of finally had a chance, and yeah, it was kind of calm in the Side Max chat.
And so another good running for the Cymax crew, getting Palmer's first win of the season, T5 Black in second, and Swift in third place for his first podium of the season. But ladies and gentlemen, if you did enjoy that fifth round of the SRS GT3 series for tier number 1, please leave a like, leave a comment, and if you want to finish up on our SRS GT3 series, we're running 90 minutes next week at Bathurst. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'm happy to unveil a special event that I will be unveiling at the end of the season for our, kind of like special event, or events as I like to call it. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stick on forward for that, I will be revealing that at the end of the season. But ladies and gentlemen, if you did enjoy the race, leave a like, leave a comment, and like I said, if you want to follow us up on our runnings of the SRS GT3 series, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've been SD_RDZ. Congratulations to our pony finishers, and congratulations to our race winners and finishers, and we will see you guys next week for round 6 of the SRS GT3 series.